Jake was just 26, living a life that felt like it was constantly slipping through his fingers, a life filled with moments that lacked any sense of purpose or meaning. Every day seemed to blend into the next, like the pages of a book that had been torn out, leaving the story incomplete. He was always searching for something, maybe happiness, maybe peace, but no matter what he tried, he couldn't find it. His depression had a hold on him, one that no amount of therapy, medication, or even well-meaning friends seemed to loosen. He had a good job, a roof over his head, but nothing felt real, nothing felt worthy of his energy. At work, he was an invisible man. At home, he was a ghost in his own apartment. The walls of his world felt suffocating, closing in on him. The laughter and joy that once filled his life had long since faded into a hollow, aching emptiness. He would lie in bed for hours at a time, staring at the ceiling, wondering what the point of it all was. Every thought, every moment, felt like a heavy burden, a weight that pushed him further and further into the shadows. His relationships had become strained, and his friends, those who had once been so close, seemed distant and unsure of how to help him. He tried to tell them what was going on inside, but it never came out right. They didn't get it. The world didn't get it. The isolation started to feel unbearable. He started to believe that maybe he was too broken to be fixed, too far gone for anyone to save. The idea of reaching out again seemed futile, like throwing a rope into an endless void. Eventually, Jake made a decision that would change everything. In his mind, death seemed like the only way out, the only way to stop the relentless cycle of pain. It wasn't a dramatic moment, but a quiet, resigned conclusion. He wasn't angry or vengeful, just tired. Tired of pretending that everything was okay when it wasn't. Tired of battling demons that no one else could see. With one final breath, he let go. But death didn't bring the peace Jake expected. It wasn't like drifting into a warm, eternal sleep. Instead, Jake found himself waking up in a place that was wrong. A cold, grey void stretched out before him, a space that seemed both endless and empty. There were no bright lights or divine figures waiting to greet him, no sense of comfort or relief. The silence was suffocating, overwhelming. There were no sounds, no smells, no colors, just a vast, oppressive stillness that made him feel more alone than ever before. It was as though he had fallen into a place that existed outside the bounds of time. There were no clocks, no sun, no night. Just a stagnant void where the concept of time didn't seem to exist. No comfort, no closure. He couldn't remember how he got there, or even what had happened to him. The only thing he knew was that he was no longer in the world he'd known. Panic set in as he tried to move, only to realize that he was stuck, frozen in place, as though the very air around him had become solid. He reached out, expecting to touch something, anything, but his hands passed through the air like he wasn't even there. He wasn't sure if he was alive, dead, or caught somewhere in between. It felt like he had been submerged in an ocean of nothingness. What is this? Where am I? He wondered aloud, but there was no response. No answers came, only the suffocating silence. Suddenly, he felt a subtle shift, as if something had stirred in the air. His heart rate quickened, and a low whisper echoed in the distance. He turned sharply, but saw nothing. The feeling of being watched, of being judged, gnawed at him from every direction. As Jake stood there, struggling to make sense of his surroundings, a figure appeared in front of him. He wasn't sure where the figure came from, or how long it had been there, but it was unmistakably real. It was a man, dressed in a dark suit, looking entirely unremarkable, except for the slight glow that seemed to emanate from him. His face wasn't familiar, but his presence was commanding. He didn't look like an angel, and he didn't look like a demon either. He was just there. "You're dead," the man said in a voice that was calm, almost bored, as though delivering the news to a patient rather than a soul who had just crossed over. Jake didn't know how to respond. "Dead?" he whispered, still trying to grasp the reality of his situation. But where am I?" The man gave him a look, as if the question was irrelevant. "You're in the afterlife. You're not supposed to be here yet, but it's too late now. You're dead, and there are rules." Jake felt his heart sink. Rules? He wasn't sure what that meant, but he couldn't ignore the sense of dread that grew in his chest. The figure continued, explaining that in this place, souls were neither punished nor rewarded, they were simply processed. "This isn't heaven or hell," the man said. "It's just the space between, a waiting room, of sorts, before your final destination is decided, and that decision depends on you." Jake's stomach churned as the weight of the words sank in. The idea of there being a decision after death, a final judgment, felt too final, too overwhelming. How could he decide? He had barely made it through life. How could he possibly face whatever came next? He couldn't bear to think about it. He was in limbo, stuck, neither here nor there, caught between two worlds with no clear understanding of what would come next. The man's words continued to echo in his mind as the vast emptiness loomed all around him. Days, or what seemed like days, passed as Jake wandered through the vast, empty space. He spoke to other souls, some resigned to their fate, others desperately clinging to the hope that they could somehow escape this place. Some souls had already given up, silently floating in the grey expanse, while others frantically searched for an exit that didn't exist. Jake learned that he wasn't the only one who felt lost and confused. Every soul here seemed to be in the same state of limbo, wondering if they'd made the right choice, wondering if they deserved to be here. And yet, there was something about this place that forced Jake to confront himself in a way he never had before. It was as if he was stripped of everything that had once defined him, his job, his relationships, his identity. In this space, he had nothing to hide behind. There were no distractions, no obligations, no expectations. Jake was forced to look inward, to face all the pain, guilt, and regret he had buried for years. The self-loathing, the years of missed opportunities, the relationships he had ruined with his own distance, these emotions flooded him, one after another, until it felt like the weight of the world was bearing down on him. It was terrifying at first. The memories, the overwhelming sense of lost time, the knowledge that he had spent so much of his life disconnected from the world, disconnected from himself. The pain felt unbearable. But slowly, over time, Jake began to understand. He wasn't here because he was a failure or because he was unworthy of love. He was here because he had never allowed himself to truly live, to experience the full spectrum of human emotions. He had been so focused on surviving his pain that he had forgotten how to embrace the beauty of life itself. The revelation was overwhelming, the realization that he had been so close to the edge for so long, never letting himself fully embrace the small moments, the connections with others, the opportunity to be truly vulnerable, was devastating. But it was also liberating. For the first time, Jake felt free. He felt like he had finally acknowledged the deep wounds inside him, and in doing so, he could heal. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. Slowly, as he accepted his past, he found that he could also change the future. Even in the afterlife, he had power to choose how to move forward, how to make peace with himself, and how to embrace what came next, even if it was uncertain. Jake's decision wasn't easy, and it wasn't immediate. But as time passed, he began to feel something he hadn't felt in years: hope. For the first time, he felt that he could let go of the regret that had plagued him. He realized that death wasn't the end, it was a transition, an opportunity to confront everything he had buried deep within himself. He didn't know what awaited him in the afterlife, nor did he know what his final destination might be. But for the first time in a long time, he knew what he needed to do. He could move forward, not because he knew what lay ahead, but because he understood that truly living required the courage to face both the light and the dark. The afterlife wasn't what he had expected, but in a way, it had given him the chance to finally live. Even beyond death, there was an opportunity for growth, for healing, for making peace with the choices he had made. He no longer feared what came next. Instead, Jake embraced it with a quiet resolve. He chose to move forward, to keep growing, to make peace with the past, and to allow himself the grace to move on, whether that meant crossing over to the other side or moving into a new phase of existence. In the end, Jake had made his decision. The afterlife had taught him what life had not, that there is no ending, only transition. He would continue to grow, to change, even in the face of death. And maybe, just maybe, he had finally found the peace he had longed for all along. If you found Jake's story moving or thought-provoking, make sure to like this video, comment below with your thoughts or experiences, and share it with someone who might need to hear this message of hope. You never know how much a story like this could help someone. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. We have plenty more content coming your way about resilience, growth, and the power of emotional healing. And if you're interested in exploring more stories like Jake's, check out our next video, where we dive into even deeper emotional journeys and share more tips on finding strength in difficult times. Take care, and remember, you're not alone. Keep going, one step at a time.